We all develop new habits sometimes, and you know, if our friends don't tell us about them, then are they really our friends? Christian Gokel here on Second Down. Glad to have y'all hanging out with us here as we try to send you into the weekend here on a positive note, on a happy note. We got a lot of things to talk about. I haven't been on the show in a couple of days.
Yeah, for sure.
Some Braves baseball, and then I believe what Kevin Thomas described as manual labor yesterday. I don't know if I would describe what we did yesterday as manual labor. Just some necessary refortifications of some very important company facilities.
That's an extremely good way to put it. And I do like the fact that you weren't sarcastic at all when you said that.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't sarcastic.
No, there are people who are listening right now who are probably heading home.
Yeah.
Because they had to be up at 3 or 4 o'clock this morning to go to work and actually do manual labor.
Yeah, we're not saying
no. We did not do manual labor yesterday.
No.
Working inside an air conditioned environment. Like I appreciate you, Kevin, but that was not manual labor. But no, speaking of habits, sometimes we develop habits and you don't realize that you're developing a habit. And I think it is on your friends or family members to let you know, hey, this is kind of weird that you started doing this, but maybe it's something we should address. And so, PJ, I feel like me and all of our listeners are your friends and family members here.
Okay. All right.
And so there's something we need to address.
Is this about
PJ does not talk to me all day. All day.
Listen, it's not that bad.
But every single show now, he starts telling me his life story literally as we're playing the intro music. Like nothing to do with the show. More of a story that kind of starts with, what's funny? And I'm just like, we have 20 seconds until the show starts, and you're trying to tell me about your tax return situation.
Wasn't it done before Mark stopped talking?
No, you did not. There was no culmination of that story. You just kind of realized, oh God, I'm out of time, so I kind of have to go.
No, there was.
And then pause.
No, there was.
Okay, you a story doesn't end when you go. So it was funny, like just when you stop it during the middle, like right. It did.
That's how I end my stories. I just thought that was funny.
So you start a story, I think it's funny, and then you end it. I thought that was funny.
I just thought it was funny.
So it's just maybe like
give you no time to laugh. Just get right.
We come on the air at 2:03. Maybe if you could start these stories at 1:55, we'd be solid.
It's a very good point. If you could trigger my memory in some way at 1:55, so I remember the thing, because that's most of the time you're not thinking about anything, whatever, blah blah, and then something just kind of triggers in your mind, and that's when you tell the story. It's not my fault that happened at 2:01.
You know what I think happens is it's the first time all day that you've like stopped doing something. Whether it's like working, being on your phone, doing anything, like it's the first time you just kind of like stop and like let your mind work.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, I have to fill the silence somehow. It's my taxes.
Well, I don't think it's that. I think you were on a very good point there, until you said, like, I don't really mind the silence. The silence is fine. I'm actually someone like in car trips and stuff like that. I feel like the other person's feeling awkward because like I'm good with just not talking.
I will tell you, I am perfectly fine with saying 0 words.
Yeah, well, I think
for hours upon end.
Right, like you and me were in the truck for a while together yesterday, and I think we both very clearly were fine with that.
Who's not okay with that?
Kevin.
Hey, I didn't say anything.
The look.
I wasn't gonna say anything. I was just gonna eye contact him awkwardly.
No, if we're gonna start out and like my dad's really bad at that. Like my dad will talk about literally anything under the sun as long as there's not silence.
The best way to deal with that? Put your head back and go to sleep. That being said, we have a lot of sports to talk about.
I'll try to fix that, by the way. Thank you. I guess not. We'll see.
Just give me like 3 minutes earlier to start the story.
All right. I will start trying to do what you said and stop doing.
Like when we had Kevin on to do the 90s,
my mind triggers
the 90s country thing. It's like Kevin was kind of looking at me because you were just. I'm not saying what you're talking about is not things that I'm interested in. I am clearly interested in them, but also at the same time, as the show liner is starting to run, maybe it's time to wrap it up. And I don't mean wrap it up when you hear Mark finish talking and the intro music fading out.
I will. Yeah, no, for sure.
There's maybe a 2-second delay between PJ's last word and me starting the show.
No, that's true. There might not even be 2 seconds
Yeah.
between. What were you saying about the country music thing though?
No, like the segment when we started the show with Kevin doing the 90s country thing, you literally did the same thing, and Kevin was looking at me like, is he gonna stop before the show starts?
Yeah. No.
Because literally I hit on and you stopped talking. I turned the mics on and you stopped talking.
Yeah, I was done. Yeah.
So again, we're working on it here. Huge news yesterday, and I will say this is huge news because you know how passionate we are on the show, and I like to think we got this done.
I think there's a very good chance we did.
Because we are, if there's one thing the show talks about consistently, it's uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
Big fans. One of the most important discussions we've ever had on the show is about the Falcons when they switch their uniforms. I like to think.
Yeah.
Because boy, do they mess that whole situation up. But somebody finally got it right. News coming out yesterday of Athens of Georgia reverting back from the Bulldog Bold, which was the font Georgia had used for their numbers and letters, reverting back to the block numbers.
Thank goodness.
Or what people call the varsity font.
Okay.
Right? Block numbers. The same font that Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Tennessee, I believe Florida, like everybody else, USC, everybody uses.
All the teams with really solid uniforms.
Right. Listen, if we want to go off on a tangent, there are teams with really solid uniforms that don't use this.
Sure.
But this is the same uniform that Georgia wore or the same number that Georgia wore every single season of Georgia's history up until 2013 or 2014, one or the other. And then you make the switch, and some fans like it, some fans don't. I am a huge fan. I am a huge fan of them switching back to the block numbers because I think it looks like Georgia.
Yeah.
The red and black, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crispy uniform. And for a long time, I would say this. I think the best away uniform in college football is Georgia's away uniform.
It's up there.
Those red lids with the white tops and the silver breeches, which are really gray breeches right now, but that's a whole nother tangent we can go off into because Nike can't figure out how to get the paint to not be heavy to make the silver breeches actually silver. Yeah. But that being said, now that they're back to the block numbers, I think Georgia pretty clearly has the best away uniform in college football.
Some of the best, for sure.
All right, Penn State.
No. They're like S tier for me, no doubt. There's not a lot of teams up there that are in that elite category. I think it's funny that it's ironic. They're like the one team that goes away from my kind of uniform theory of how I like the colors to work out with the away. Like every piece of the jersey is a different color. Like you have the gray silver pants, and then you have the white, and then the red on top. And normally I like a little bit more uniform, and I'm not going to.
You like more uniformity in the uniforms?
There you go.
Okay.
So yeah, but they go away from that and they make it work. It's just it looks incredibly clean, and like you said, it's just going to be even better now that the block numbers are back.
And it was interesting how Georgia's social media did this. There was a bunch of like cryptic, like Riddler from the Batman.
Yeah.
I'm not being an old person there. Like the title of the movie is The Batman. I'm not saying like I need to go use the internet.
Right. Don't come a Christian about that. Like it's the name of the movie.
Right. It's The
Batman.
Decided
to do it that way.
From the latest The Batman. It's very Riddler-esque the way they did the one where it's like the numbers, like 2022, and the numbers kept switching from like cursive to block. Mm-hmm. And then they tweeted out something that looked like it was in I'm not forgetting the tapping code. I don't know why.
Oh, Morse code.
Morse code. Thank you. I don't know why I completely blanked on that, but they had Morse code, and then they had like the little blocks that kids play with.
Yeah.
That have the numbers and the letters on them, and they deleted the tweet. And there's another tweet that they put out where they deleted the tweet, but it's like it's just enough time for you to glimpse at it before they delete it. Like, and so everybody was kind of like, "Oh, go black! They're back." I thought that was pretty creative from Georgia's social media.
Really cool.
Whereas like you knew that they didn't run that by Kirby Smart because he'd been like, "Just put the dang jerseys out."
I think most college coaches probably would be like that, but
I don't know. There's a lot of coaches now that are kind of coming around on the old social media.
Well, that's the thing, right? If Ole Miss did something like this, Lane Kiffin would have been retweeting it and saying something about it no matter what. So you're right about that. No, I thought that was very creative and a very cool thing to do. Like you said, even going back and deleting the tweets like they were sent out by mistake or something like that. Yeah. That was really cool also. So yeah, everything around it I thought was really solid. There's another, we were talking about it while we were in the truck. There's another kind of revelation in those pictures with the jerseys. I mean, you have the numbers, of course, but you said something about one of the jerseys that I thought was really cool, and hopefully will make more of a comeback.
What's that?
Okay, so one of the things you mentioned and pointed out to me is, now this wasn't a recruiting visit. This was an announcement specifically for the numbers. But also, if you look, there's the white away uniform, there's the red home uniform, and then the black jerseys, which, yes, I know Georgia wore black jerseys last year or the year before that with like the dog collar and all that.
Yeah,
kind
the
of stuff.
last time Georgia wore them was the
Arkansas
the
right?
Peach Bowl.
Oh, yeah. They did wear it in the Peach Bowl. You're right. But they wore those with the dog collar and everything. These were more of the just kind of
they're the OG,
home uniforms,
the OG, like when Matt Stafford
Matt
Stafford and O'Shawn Moreno and Thomas Brown all came out with the old switcherooski,
right?
With that one, so they gone are the spiked collars,
right,
on the black uniforms.
I don't think those were bad, but I
no,
will
it's just
say,
these that were clean.
Yes, my favorite alternate black uniforms of all time, period, are the Georgia ones.
All right.
And it's because they don't overthink it, but yeah, no, absolutely. I supporting and very thankful that they're changing up now. Just Pittsburgh Steelers, take some notes, and please God, change back to the block numbers as well.
I'm having to reel myself in here because we do have a lot I want to get to here. I'm trying to look at all the different stuff we need to talk about. We had some big news before the show started. One of the biggest remaining, I don't even know what you call them now. Like, what do you call a player who's in the transfer portal? You call it like a free agent? One of the biggest unsigned transfer portal player. Yeah, portaler. We'll workshop it. One of the biggest unsigned players in the transfer portal, Tyler Harrell out of Louisville, one of the speedsters from that team, one of the best receivers in college football, is on the move. PJ, can you hazard a guess as to where Mr. Harrell is headed?
Well, if we're talking about it, probably either Alabama or Georgia.
He is headed to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, imagine that.
So Alabama loses Jamison Williams, who's the best transfer from last year, I'd probably say. And then you lose John Mechie. This comes on the heels of losing Devonta Smith and number 17. It's Friday, man. Jalen Waddle.
Same boat.
Okay, and losing Jalen Waddle. So like back-to-back years, you're losing like potential first-round picks. Like I think if John Mechie and Jamison Williams both don't get hurt, they're probably like late first-round. Or Jamison Williams probably early first-round pick. John Mechie is probably late. But first-round talent, like back-to-back. So what do? You go steal Georgia's best receiver and Jermaine Burton, and he balls out in your past couple of scrimmages. And then you're like, I could use some more because Hall's headed to Texas. I could use some more help. Let's just go get Louisville's best receiver, the best remaining receiver there in the transfer portal. Oh, and by the way, we got the best running back in the transfer portal, Jahmyr Gibbs.
That offense is so scary.
Well, okay, here's where I want to talk about it. Number one, Nick Saban just massacring the transfer portal, and he warned you that this was going to happen when you did this.
Turning into Mr. Steal Your Player.
Yeah, Mr. Steal Your Player.
That's it.
Yep. That being said, I do have some concerns about this Alabama offense, and it's pretty relative because they're, I'd say, the second best offense in college football behind Ohio State.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think Ohio State probably has the best offense. I mean, those Jackson Smith and Jigba, if we're doing like Madden ratings, might be the best player in college football not named Will Anderson.
Yeah, he's scary good.
Yeah,
I hate talking about
he's
this,
filthy. He had 300 yards in the Rose Bowl against Utah, who's like a top 4 team coming into 2022.
Yeah, their defense is immaculate, and he just shredded it like Swiss cheese. I mean, they're incredible.
They have Marvin Harrison the third over there, and then that's not even talking about their just, when I say stable of running backs. So Ohio State is going to be filthy next year, but Alabama's going to be really, really good. Here's what concerns me. All of those pretty toys that you have mean absolutely nothing if you can't keep Bryce Young upright.
True.
And Alabama's losing a bunch of talent, mainly Evan Neal, to the draft. And I know it was a spring game, but the biggest concern every Alabama beat writer has, and I should say every Alabama fan should have, is the offensive line, because I believe one of the teams in the 8A game was sacked 12 times.
Goodness.
Now, granted, in a spring game, it's just a tap if you touch the quarterback, but Will Anderson was massacring people. And he does that to everyone. But still, he was folding down that line of scrimmage. And Alabama, again, is having to replace a potential top 3 pick at left tackle, and it's going to take a minute. And they have a week 2 road trip to Texas where they're playing like 5 of their former players. Am I saying they're going to get upset by Texas? No, but you have a tough out of conference schedule. And then you have to play in an SEC West that has some pretty dang good defensive lines. So,
I mean, most of the time, like,
this is going to be a war of attrition.
yeah,
And if Bryce Young's getting banged up all year, that, like, if there's one thing that prevents Alabama from going 15-0 and just running away with the national championship next year, I think it's this offensive line. Again, it's all relative. They still have one of the best offenses in college football and could very legitimately do that. But I do look at this as a potential Achilles heel.
true. Yeah, I mean, you got to keep any quarterback upright for sure. And like you said, I feel like the staple for most SEC teams is like, listen, even if they're not great record wise and total team wise, they're most likely going to have really good defensive lines and front sevens. So, like you said, you got to be ready for that. Most of the time, Alabama is, but they are showing a little bit of a weakness there. And not only that, I hate that we have to say this about athletic quarterbacks all the time, but just because they're athletic doesn't mean they want to run around all the time. Like Bryce Young is an insanely good pocket passer and is very comfortable in the pocket, and that's where he wants to throw from. So,
Bryce Young is not built for running the football 10 to 15 times a game.
Exactly.
Dude's kind of slight.
Right.
Like Kyler Murray's short, but he's built like a spark plug, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just
yeah, he
right?
can take it.
Yeah, like he could take some licks, like kind of like Baker Mayfield, not overly tall, but just kind of thick.
Yeah.
Right? Like 6'1", 210, 215 pounds. Bryce Young, if I had to guess, is probably hovering around the 170s, 180s.
Right.
Right? So like not built for getting tackled from behind by 300-pounders multiple times a game.
Not at all.
Right? But if you let him stay in the pocket and you give him some lanes, there's not a better thrower of the football in college football.
Exactly. No, precisely. Yeah. And every time.
That's why, for his sake, I hope that he doesn't go to the Falcons in a couple of years, because the abuse that Matt Ryan had to take the past few years, I don't know if old Bryce could stand up to it.
I feel so bad for Marcus Mariota right now, just in general. But no, you're exactly right, and that's the main worry.
Listen,
like,
listen. He didn't have to sign that contract.
He didn't have to. But then again, he needed something, and obviously not a lot of people lining up at the door right now. So he kind of took what he had to. Hopefully, he can run away from all those hits this year. We'll see. But yeah, no, exactly. That's my main concern, is not only with the offense of a whole, but I hope we don't see Bryce Young. Well, I mean, this is weird, right? Because we're Georgia Sports Talk Radio and talking about hoping not.
Well, no, but college football is less good if Bryce Young isn't in it.
Exactly.
Right?
No,
like,
for
it's
sure.
like
I just hope we also don't see him regress just because of that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, if he has struggles, he has struggles, but that would be a disappointment. But like you said, as a team, this is Alabama, right? I'm not going to feel very bad for them either way.
I will say this:
Alabama, Nick Saban, that they can do what they need to get better, and we'll see if they do.
I will say, Bill O'Brien, with that offense, even last year with as good of offensive linemen as they had, they'll take the downfield shots, but where they kind of stretch you sideline to sideline is they just hit those quick tunnel screens and bubble screens, and it's just out of Bryce Young's hands really fast. A lot of slants, a lot of RPOs. So, like, if there was an offense that could maybe stand up to having to deal with some offensive line issues early, it's probably this one.
Very good point. Yeah.
And then Jahmyr Gibbs catching the ball out of the backfield, but also his ability on the zone runs, like, he's going to help out a lot as well. So I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into the fact that this is going to keep them from being in the SEC championship, playing for a chance to go to the college football playoff, or maybe guaranteeing themselves a spot in the college football playoff. But it's something to watch out for. All right, we got a lot more to get to, a lot more spring game talk. There's a bunch of huge storylines this weekend. What we're going to do here in a couple of segments is run through these games, and I'll give you a reason why you should check out each one of them. Also got some Braves baseball coming up later tonight. Got a big-time contributor to that World Series championship. You're going to be in town receiving his World Series ring. Also, though, I want to come back. I want to talk about a developing story. New York Times put an article about it out yesterday, and I think it's something that has a lot of local relevance, just with the amount of people involved in sports around here. So we'll come back, we'll talk about that, and then dive into some more spring games and Braves talk a little bit later. This is Second Down on ESPN Radio. We'll be right back after this. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. 2 different locations in Savannah to take care of all of your uniform needs. Christian Gokel alongside PJ Zuko. Glad to have y'all hanging out with us here on this Friday afternoon. Got Braves baseball coming up for you a little bit later. 7:20 first pitch. Kyle Wright on the mound for the Atlanta Braves. But PJ, I told you last segment, I want to get into a story from the New York Times, and, you know, maybe not the publication that I thought would cover this particular side of sports, but I appreciate it all the same. Per the NFHS, this is from the New York Times, from 2018 to 2021, roughly 20% of high school officials quit.
Right. Yeah.
And statements from the NFHS says they currently have more officials who are over the age of 60 than under the age of 30.
Yeah.
So if you look at that fulcrum, not trending in the right direction for officials. And there's already shortages in a bunch of states. But the ones that would surprise you, Florida and Texas, are facing pretty critical shortages to the point where Texas, which is known for Friday Night Lights, plays games on Mondays and Tuesdays simply because they don't have enough officials. I know in Georgia, you've seen a lot. I think the first round of the playoffs, there was 2 different classifications that had to play games on Saturdays simply because they did not have enough officials to go around.
Right.
Now, some of that was you didn't have enough quote unquote qualified officials where they had been graded out as good enough for the playoffs. But also, if you look at a bunch of different cities and counties around the state of Georgia, a lot of them are playing on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, simply because they don't have enough officials. Now, when asked why they don't have enough officials or why these officials are quitting, 70% of them referenced players and fans, specifically parents screaming and threatening them, and a pretty drastic rise in players assaulting officials.
Yeah.
This one happened just over this weekend. Sidney Freeman was refereeing a youth basketball game at the DeKalb Church, which is in Atlanta, when he was attacked. So he said he was, basically, to summarize the story, officiating a game in which he describes as not an overly contentious game, but the players started complaining about the officiating before the half, and he said he heard one of the coaches look at his players and say, "Don't worry, we'll get them after the game." That came to fruition when 5 players and a coach jumped him after a game, lacerating his ear, bunch of swelling on his head. Here's where I'm at with this. Number 1, officials don't do this to pay the bills.
Right.
Like, I would say in the state of Georgia, the biggest and probably most difficult officiating you can get a job for is football. Right? You have any idea how much these dudes make on a Friday night?
Off the top of my head, no.
About $120.
Yeah. That makes sense.
About $120.
Yeah.
For officiating these games. Right? You're not doing that to pay the bills.
Right.
Right? You're doing that because you love football. Right? Or you love basketball, or you love lacrosse. Right? And I understand that parents, you care about your babies. I really do.
Yep.
But do you think the best way to voice your displeasure with the officiating as a grown adult is to scream at an official? To let your, I mean, there was a Tennessee legislator this year, like, who goes to Washington, right, and represents our country, who tried to pants a referee at a game. And he came out and said, I did a bad job. I let my emotions take over.
Yeah, whatever.
I really struggle with this because, again, we don't have the sports that we cover, specifically at the lower levels, without officials.
Right.
And if you want to take it even further than that, these are the ones who get, like, paid good money in high school. If you're going to, like, your 9 or 10-year-old softball game or your 9 or 10-year-old's baseball game, and you're screaming at the 16-year-old kid who's out there just trying to make $40 on a weekend,
yeah,
you need to reevaluate a lot of things.
Yep.
Reevaluate a lot of things. And then if you get so emotionally invested in this that you cause bodily harm to another human being at a church in DeKalb County,
Mm-hmm.
you should never be allowed on another playing field for the rest of your life.
Agreed.
Like the players, I can get being young, still no excuse. But if you're a coach leading the charge,
Exactly.
yeah.
The players literally got a green light. I mean, that's where. I mean, there's a lot of things.
The dude's been
disturb me.
arrested. It was a team from Alabama. The dude's been arrested. It's a 26-year-old.
Right.
That's a grown man.
Yeah.
That's a grown ass man.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna say, "Don't worry, we'll get him after the game."
Yeah. It's embarrassing. There's a lot of different words, right? It's embarrassing. The scenes are just kind of horrific. But again, like this isn't the first time we've seen this. Whether it be like that, we've seen players recently go after referees. That there was that one big one, I believe, out of Texas. Where,
well, that wasn't a referee. That was a player tackling another player.
Was it?
The baseball?
No, I'm talking about the football one.
Oh, yeah, from last year.
Yeah.
Well, there's another one from Texas.
Right.
This past weekend where you had a player tackling another player. But yeah, no, there's the one where the player got ejected from the game and the official had his back turned and just came and speared him in the middle of the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he got arrested.
Yeah, I believe so too. So now there's a lot of words for this, and I don't know. It's just horrific. It's embarrassing. I feel like there's a line drawn. You started this by saying, I get it. You care about your babies, and I understand that too. You get passionate about certain things. You want to see, your kids compete in the right way and do it in a way that you think is fair.
Yeah.
Of course, I understand that. Being passionate is one thing. There's a line that's drawn though when you start.
I feel like there's a level like that like emotion that people don't know how to deal with, and maybe it's just like society now, or I don't know, because I wasn't around back in the day when like going to football games or baseball games or basketball games. So like I don't know how people treated officials back then, but it's from everything I'm reading, it sounds like it's getting worse. I feel like maybe there's a sense of entitlement, and people don't know how to deal with the emotion that comes with. You may not like it, but there's nothing you can do about it.
True.
Like
that's a very good point.
Like if you're sitting in the stands and an official keeps calling holding and you don't feel like your team's holding, you know what you can do about that? Absolutely nothing.
Right.
And so people don't know how to deal with that emotion. And so they kind of let that emotion overtake them. And like, listen, it's sports. You're going to hear chirping from the fans. You're
course,
like,
I'm not saying,
hey, get your, we run a commercial that says like, you need to get your eyes checked over at the eye center. Like we run a commercial about the refs, but I can understand the chirping.
Yeah.
Right now, do you need to make it derogatory? Absolutely not.
That's what I'm saying.
Keep it about the sport. I think that's fine. And some schools do a good job of monitoring that, but it's when you are so upset that you feel the need to physically intervene.
Yeah.
You really need to reevaluate some things.
Absolutely.
You need to evaluate your anger management. You need to evaluate the things that bother you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can guarantee you, dad or mom out there who has like actually touched an official after the game, it's probably not the fact that some 19, 20-year-old refereeing your kid's game messed up a call. You probably have some other stuff going on.
True.
You know? And you feel like verbally berating a teenager on a field is the best way to do that.
Right. Or, I mean, yeah. And that's one. Or an older man or woman who's literally just trying to be there and support the game. Because like you said, I
think there's a big separation between high school and youth sports. Like in high school, the officials are separated from the crowd.
Yeah.
Right. Like the fans are in the stands, and most high schools you go to now, that you have no access to the field, mostly to keep the players safe, but the officials are isolated. Right. You can get yelled at and stuff.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they have separate parking. They're not going to get.
It's going to be a lot more difficult.
It's more difficult to get to them. But like I said, when you're at a 11U soccer game, and there's you and your fellow teenager there officiating the game, and your parents are literally right there on the field screaming at you.
Right.
It's a little bit different. I mean, like, and the last thing you want to do, see some parent for the team in purple over there with the sweatshirt, right, come running at you like a big old purple hippopotamus, ready to whip your tail.
Right.
So it's it's mind-boggling to me that people let this happen. But I think the unintended consequences are you're not going to have any more officials for your kids' games.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it's really easy to make that decision. Like, it's tough for the referees, but no, that's how it's going to work. Like, if this keeps happening, then that's going to be right. We're going to keep losing referees and whatever. But no, it's a huge problem, and I think the biggest issue with this is the fact that people are getting physically harmed, but because of that anger and that undealt with just kind of frustration and rage that people are feeling and acting out on. The other consequence of this is what we saw with this a few days ago. The example you're setting for those kids. You're like I said, those kids were given the green light by that coach, and not only that, but the coach was.
Sports are never. I'm just going to say this, and this is on a sports radio show.
Yeah.
And if there's kids listening, I hope they're listening. If there's parents who yell at officials or have like gotten into a fight with officials, I certainly hope you're listening. This is a sports radio show. Sports are never important enough to cause bodily harm to another human being.
Absolutely. There are very few things in life, honestly, that are. I would say, and sports is definitely one of those things that is not important enough to do that. So completely agree. But that's one of my biggest things is just like, you're literally, not only are you causing that harm, but you're also now showing an example and raising kids that like this example is okay.
Oh, and I want people to fully
fine to do this.
I want people to fully understand this too. If you are the parent that yells at referees, that's how you are known.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're known as. You're the dad or mom who yells. Like just completely understand that every other parent on the team and like other parents in the leagues, that's how they identify you.
It's true. And like you said, if you're fine with that, that's fine. If you want to chirp, I get that too. Like, again, we're not talking about that.
Oh, dude, come on. Like I'm like, no, I've been in the stands. You get in with a, come on, Blue.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or where was that?
I mean,
that's completely fine. That's part of the game. That's what it's supposed to sound like. Or let the kids play.
The refs kind of expect that too when they go. They don't expect, funny. Like you said, the derogatory terms.
Yeah, so you start hitting them with your trash.
And then the actual physical act of going out and causing harm. All of that stuff, heck no.
I saw a ref talking about this on Twitter today, and he
insanity.
said that the moment he decided to quit was he was leaving the field, went out to his car, got in his car. Again, this was a youth league game, and a parent stood behind his car in a parking spot and wouldn't let him leave until he, quote, apologized to my child.
It's embarrassing. Yeah, no, forget that.
Like, the entitlement that teaches your kid.
Yeah.
Or what should be the lesson that you're teaching a kid if you feel like a game was officiated poorly is some things are out of your control. Control what you can control.
Yep.
One game's not going to come down to one call.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Bunch of other plays you guys could have made. Right? Control what you can control.
Right.
And I'll say that to the fans in the stands too. You are a fan. You are a spectator. You are not involved in that game.
Yeah.
You are not involved. You have no impact. Outside of the noise you can generate, you have no impact.
Right.
Go to the game. Enjoy the game. You've heard me on here a million times. I encourage people that don't even have kids in high school, go out and watch a high school football game. Go out and watch a high school basketball game.
Absolutely.
Great local entertainment. But if you feel the need to like violently harm someone, maybe we need to talk about some things.
Mm-hmm.
This is Second Down on ESPN Radio. We got some spring games to dive into. I'm going to come back, tell you about the ones we got coming up this weekend and why you should be watching them. Please do not yell at me. You know what? No, you know what? It's fine. If you feel the need to, maybe we'll make it a new show. Fridays, before your kids have games coming up, if you need to like get something off your chest about officiating, you call in 912-342-7184. Berate me. Leave the officials alone. We'll be right back after this. PJ, if you giggle at Shania one more time.
Well, dude, like,
why are you laughing at Shania?
I didn't even laugh at first. You just like made it up. We're like, why are you laughing at me? I'm like, I'm not. And then you did the sound, and I'm gonna.
What sound did I do?
You did the sound.
What sound did I do?
At the beginning of the song, you were like, what was it? You were like, woo!
Do you want to do it together?
You were like,
you want to do it together?
No, I don't. No. I don't even know when the sound is.
You ready? Right there.
Oh my God.
You want to do it again?
Where's it at? Did I miss it?
Yeah.
Did we miss it?
Yeah, here we go.
You gotta like give me it. You gotta like give me it.
You missed it again.
See, yeah, I did, because I thought like, yeah, my bad.
Ready?
No, we're not doing this, dude.
Come on.
What were you gonna talk about? What? Where is it? Woo! I don't know where it is.
Thank you, Shania.
What is
No, we
going
gotta talk
on?
some spring games, man.
Okay.
You got to talk some spring games. All right, so we have some big time ones coming up this weekend. I know last weekend you're like, yeah, you got Georgia, Alabama. There's no spring games after that, right? No. This is the more fun weekend. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Okay.
This is the more fun weekend because this is a bunch of new faces at
Like
a bunch
that?
of these schools. So it's your first look at what I think are a bunch of schools that can kind of shape the landscape of college football to come the next few years, i.e., LSU.
Yes.
First year of the Brian Kelly regime down there in Baton Rouge.
We don't care about that.
Yeah, we do.
Nah. I care more about the players. I don't care about that.
Well, I'm just trying to give you a reason to
dancing
watch.
fool.
I'm just trying to give you a reason to watch. Yeah, maybe you see Brian Kelly cut a rug, bust a move, right? Weirdly gyrate on a player. Who knows?
Please
We've seen
no.
videos of it before. But we get our first look at Brian Kelly over at LSU. That coming up this weekend. Also Notre Dame. Brian
Yes.
Kelly's, his stepping stone to LSU.
Yeah. True.
I'm sure that won't
Jeez.
infuriate anybody.
Goodness gracious.
No, Brian Kelly's previous stop,
and
I should say.
maybe Ed Orgeron's next home. Did you see that?
I think Ed Orgeron is
That
thinking
was
about
interesting.
maybe getting his kids to go. I think they were on a visit.
Yeah.
But I think Ed Orgeron's going to take a little TV deal.
Yeah. No. That'd be it. I don't know. At the same time, like I'd love to see him back in coaching. I don't.
Well,
think,
let's talk about the
I
one
don't
who's
think
actually
he did
there.
a bad job. Yeah.
Let's talk about the one who's actually there.
For sure.
Marcus Freeman, our first look at him and his
Absolutely.
meteoric rise to taking over one of the most prestigious college football jobs in the land. So we'll get our first look at Marcus Freeman. Also coming up on Saturday, first look at the Clay Helton era
There you
in
go.
Georgia Southern. I think Brian Ellis, a name to know, the offensive coordinator there for Georgia Southern. We spoke to him a couple weeks back, but we're going to get a look. Probably a pretty good idea of who's really in the quarterback race for this team, but also haven't seen a change like this in quite a while in Statesboro in terms of the offense going to an up tempo. That's the one thing that they have given us so far is we don't know what the offense is going to look like, but we know it's going to have tempo because that's the thing they just keep hammering. So in Statesboro, big time match coming up on Saturday because again, first look at the Clay Helton era. Oklahoma this Saturday. No more Lincoln Riley, and they didn't hire from within. They went and got the ungettable, the guy we thought was going to die in Clemson, Brent Venables, taking over Oklahoma, really his return to Oklahoma, but he takes over there as the head coach of the Sooners, but also a few different names to watch there. Dylan Gabriel finishing up his career as a Sooner after transferring over from UCF, so we get to watch him. Over at the Grove, you got Ole Miss's spring game coming up this weekend. Lane Kiffin's got to decide on a quarterback. They got USC transfer Jackson Dart, which is the greatest name in the history of quarterbacking. Jackson with an X.
It's pretty
Dart.
Good. Yeah.
Like if you're creating if there was like a football video game and the villain, right, your arch nemesis, his name's Jackson Dart. So we got that. Way up in Oregon, going coast to coast here. Way up in Oregon. First look at the Dan Lanning era.
True.
Funny thing to watch here is Bo Nix, who has transferred from Auburn, not taking all of the first team quarterback reps. Maybe it's spring. Maybe they're trying to get some looks. But right now, Bo Nix has not locked down that starting job. Speaking of quarterbacks, Quinn Ewers, you'll remember him from the beginning of last football season where he forewent his senior high school season, signed $1 million name, image, and likeness deal to be the 5th quarterback at Ohio State. Spent a year at Ohio State and is now at Texas. He's back home in Texas. Steve Sarkisian, former Alabama offensive coordinator, Quinn Ewers, former Ohio State quarterback, and then just a plethora of Alabama transfers. So we get our first look at them coming up on Saturday as well. TCU get our first look at them post Gary Patterson, who is now where? At Texas.
How about that?
As a special assistant. Way out in Los Angeles, we get our first look at Lincoln Riley and former Oklahoma quarterback. You still remember his name?
Caleb Williams.
Let's go. I'm just trying to get you involved. Caleb Williams.
Appreciate that.
Back at it again. And listen, Georgia wins the national championship. They play their spring game. It's booted over 1 o'clock on ESPN2. USC, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, they play their spring game, getting ready to go 7-5, 3 o'clock ESPN.
Yeah, ridiculous.
We know who you care about.
You know who else is out there this weekend?
Who's that?
The oldest man in college football, Sean Clifford, and Penn State.
I was going to get there.
Oh, my bad.
You kind of ruined my flow, but that's okay. No, talk about it.
Ruin your flow because he doesn't have any. So
yeah, that's fair. Is he the oldest quarterback or Stetson?
No, I'm pretty sure he is.
We'll figure that out in the break.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Penn State getting it going. I did see an article and they were like, "Can Penn State find a running game?" And I was like, "Is that what Penn State's worried about?"
I think we're worried about a little bit of everything.
But
yeah, that is a big problem.
Is
right now.
Is that what Penn State's worried about? Or is it just like offense in general?
Yeah.
Also, we want to do these quickly. Also, this weekend, Utah. I would encourage you to take a look at them because you are going to see them in the top 5 of pretty much every poll.
Yeah.
In college football.
Defense, man.
Yeah, everybody's focused on USC. Utah, best Pac-12 team in the country right now. And then finally, I don't know if you're going to get a look at him, but you can kind of scope out the future home of one JT Daniels because West Virginia plays their spring game. Local ties, you can watch our good friend Sam James.
Yeah, for sure.
Up there getting it done, former Richmond Hill product. Used to have a bunch of Savannah wide receivers up there, but Winston Wright transferred to Florida State. But Sam James getting it done up there at West Virginia. So a whole lot of action coming up, but I think this is a very important weekend because it gives you your first look at a whole bunch around college football. We're going to figure out who's older, Sean Clifford or Stetson Bennett. We got to bring you this hard-hitting information. We'll tell you when we come back right here on Second Down. You too can say hello to Kevin Thomas coming up on 3 and Out, immediately
Yes.
following us.
So
Some
perfect.
quick research. PJ would let you know Stetson Bennett is 24 years old. Sean Clifford's 23, so that was only a better quarterback. He's a little bit older as well.
Just
but yeah,
another thing Sean Clifford was wrong about.
that's
then.
true.
Yep.
So, hey, Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop coming up next right here on ESPN Radio.